Welcome back to Chapter 9 of Aidan Abet's Teacher's Pet. Bell's gone, school's done. Aidan raced towards the school gate, his mind racing even faster. Miss Vowell had turned Serena Mint into a gerbil, and she must have turned Big Max into a parrot. Maybe all of the other animals in the classroom had once been children. Aidan reached the gate and found it was locked, and too high to climb. Aidan doubled back and hurried around the other side of the school. If he could find a place to clamber through the back of the fence, maybe he could get out of the school grounds. Maybe he'd be home in minutes. Maybe he'd tell his mum all about how Miss Vowell had turned Serena Mint into a gerbil and Big Max into a parrot, and maybe his mum would call the police, and maybe the police would call the army, and maybe they'd all descend on the school, and that would be that for Miss Vowell. Oi! Aidan skidded to a halt and spun around. He saw the back door of the school swing open. The caretaker leaned out. Oi! He said again. Bell's gone. School's done. What are you still doing here? Animals! Aidan screamed. She's turned them into animals. Have to go. I'm not going anywhere until I finish locking up, the caretaker tutted, and he jangled the ring of keys on his belt. And I'm going to finish locking up with you running around like a headless chicken. Come on, I'll let you out the gate. Now, where did I put that key? Aidan began. He was still tempted to run, but he took a deep breath and did what he always did, focused on saving himself. The caretaker was his way out. Miss Vowell wasn't going to do to him what she did to Serena Mint with the caretaker around. Yes, sorry, I should go. I need to go, Aidan said. He edged towards the caretaker, looking left and right for any sign of Miss Vowell. Got it, the caretaker said, as he brandished the gate key. He stepped out of the doorway into the playground. Right then, let's get you out of... Ah! Aidan let out a scream. Miss Vowell was standing behind the caretaker. Run! Aidan cried, but he was too late. Miss Vowell flung a handful of powder at the caretaker. Before he could even turn, he had been transformed. In a split second, there was no sign of the old man. Standing before Aidan was a huge, dark shape, 3 times Aidan's size, a hulking mass of fur and teeth and claws. The creature let out a low, deep rumble before it rose to its full height and cast a dark shadow over Aidan. Miss Vowell had turned the caretaker into a bear. Chapter 10, The Bear Taker. It's better if you don't run. The bear fell onto its front paws in front of Aidan. It let out an angry snort, and Aidan felt its hot, wet breath on his face. Rrr! Miss Vowell stepped back through the doorway into the school. It's better if you don't turn. He'll kill you if you run, she said. Of course, I imagine he'll kill you anyway. With that, she shut the door. For a brief, strange moment, Aidan wondered if the bear remembered it was a caretaker, just like the parrot seemed to remember it was once Big Max. Maybe it wouldn't want to kill him. Rrr! But as he stared at the great brown beast, slavering and wild, Aidan decided not to risk it, so he ran. Ah! He screamed as he raced across the playground away from the bear. Aidan looked back to see the bear pounding after him. Rrr! It was fast, too fast. Aidan heard himself squeal in terror, felt his heart thump in his chest, heard his breath, shaky and desperate. His instinct told him to weave back towards the school, away from the locked gate. But the school was locked too. Miss Vowell had seen to that. Aidan dared to look back one more time. The bear was gaining on him, and fast. He raced towards the school. Then he saw it. The window to his classroom was still open. Aidan headed straight for it, his legs moving so fast that he stumbled as he lunged for the window. He forced his arms under it and dragged the window open as far as it would go. As he heard the bear growl, he dragged himself up, squeezed himself through, and landed on the windowsill, knocking the parrot's cage onto the floor. Aidan tore his shirt on the window latch, tumbled onto the floor, and landed with a painful thud. Rrr! He turned and saw the bear rear up and press its great clawed paws against the window, blocking out the light, steaming up the glass. to a room that was empty except for animals. "Max, I am Max," the parrot cried as its cage rolled across the floor. Aidan scrambled towards the door on his hands and knees. He saw the gerbil that was once Serena Mint scurry across his path and under Miss Fowle's desk. The other animals began to cry out, squeaking and squawking and chirping and chirruping. He was almost at the door when he heard a crash. Aidan felt shattered glass rain down over his head. He turned to see the bear land awkwardly on the floor of the classroom. It had broken through the window. Aidan tried to scramble to his feet as the bear shook its head in confusion, and as it shook, it saw him. Chapter 11. Aidan's Gambit. They still think like people. Aidan reached for the door handle. The bear lunged. The door swung open, straight into Aidan's face. As Aidan fell backwards, dizzy from the sharp pain of the door slamming into his forehead, he saw Miss Fowle in the doorway. She'd thrown a handful of dust at the charging bear before Aidan had even had the time to hit the floor. Arrgh! In less than a second, the great brown bear had become a tiny grey mouse. It landed on the floor with a soft thump, and then, after a moment of confusion, it scuttled away. Aidan held his bloody nose and stared up at Miss Fowle, wide-eyed with terror. "Consider yourself lucky. I have better things to do than cover up your death, Aidan, I bet," Miss Fowle said with a shrug. "Consider yourself lucky I had a change of heart." Aidan said, "Yes, miss." He wasn't sure why, but in his terror he couldn't think of anything else to say. "Disobedience has been the bane of my teaching career," Miss Fowle said with a deep sigh. "At first, I never knew how to keep my pupils in line, but then I realised that people, cannot be trusted to behave. Only a cage can ensure they remain under control. I knew then what I had to do." "Yes, miss," Aidan whimpered again. He could feel the warm blood trickle from his nose and between his fingers. "As it turned out, I learned everything I needed to know about this from school textbooks," Miss Fowle said. Transformigration, the art of transforming one thing into another. It's all in there. Once I had discovered the secret of turning man into beast, I realised I could ensure good behaviour without it affecting pupil attendance. After all, everyone is still technically in class, even if they're not altogether human. It's perfect. They're perfect. Miss Fowle dug her hand into the glass beaker. "And now I'm going to make you perfect, Aidan," she said. "The animals are telling!" Aidan cried. "They're telling on you!" Miss Fowle stopped and hovered over him with a handful of red dust. "What do you mean, telling?" she asked. They told me what you did," Aidan told her. "The snake wrote V, and the snail drew you in slime, and the rabbit spelt help in poo. And the parrot, the animals, they tried to tell me what you'd done, what you were doing. They still think like people." "Teacher's pet," the parrot squawked from its upturned cage. "Impossible," Miss Fowle hissed. She glowered at the parrot, and then her eyes darted around the room, eyeballing each of the animals in turn with a look of rage. Could it be that their humanity is returning to them over time? "They wanted me to tell on you," Aidan said. "They wanted me to tell, but I didn't." "Ungrateful creatures," Miss Fowle snarled. Her hand was still clutching the powder, but it was shaking now. "I must be more careful, or else—" "I can help you," Aidan blurted. His mind raced. "I can make sure they don't tell. I can watch them for you. I can make sure they don't misbehave. But only if you don't change me." "Teacher's pet," the parrot cried. "Teacher's pet." "I'm not stupid, Aidan," Miss Fowle tutted. "If I let you remain as a human, you'll—" I won't tell, not ever. I'll help you, I promise," Aidan cried. He took a deep breath. If? You're hardly in a position to bargain, Aidan," Miss Fowle laughed, and she held up her handful of dust. "If what?" Aidan sat up and brushed the glass from the broken window off his uniform. He took a deep breath and narrowed his eyes. "If you help me too." Chapter 12. The Teacher's Pets. Are they brothers? A week had passed since Aidan Abet was almost eaten by a bear. The shattered window had been explained away and replaced, and life had returned to normal. It was Monday, and the morning sun that poured into the classroom was as bright as Aidan's mood. Life was good, school was fun, and the bullying had stopped altogether. Aidan, would you mind doing the honours? Miss Vowell asked as she handed him the register. Yes, miss, Aidan said. He made his way to his desk, which now stood out from all the rest. His desk was the only one with an animal cage sitting on top of it. He'd asked Miss Vowell permission to keep it there, so he could keep an eye on the classroom's newest pets. Inside the cage on Aidan's desk were 2 small brown rats. Despite his dislike of animals, Aidan rarely let them out of his sight. Are they brothers? Asked Aisha Moon, the girl who sat next to him. What? Aidan asked as he opened the register. The rats, Aisha said. Do you think they're brothers? Aidan Abet stared at the animals, and a smile spread across his face. No, he said. They're unrelated. Oh, that's the end. Thank you for listening.